Welcome, Scrum Masters and Agilists from all over the world. My name is Omar McNeil, and I'm hosting this session with our amazing speaker, Thomas Elkjaer, who will be sharing insights on using the human element to create psychological safety on your teams. Welcome, Thomas.
Thank you.
All right. There are also other sessions in the Scrum Master Summit 21 that touch on this topic. Don't miss those. For example, Nono Danza will have a session on culture matters, the impact of culture on our work environment, and the learning to be a better coach track. Check out those other sessions at scrummastersummit.org. All one word, scrummastersummit.org. But now it's time to focus on our guest speaker and our topic for this session. So, Thomas, turning it back over to you. The title of your topic really grabbed my attention. I am a big believer in creating psychological safety on teams because that's probably, in my opinion, the most important thing. Like, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter how much code you put out or how much it's just if your team is toxic or you as a scrum master, if you don't understand the team dynamic in a better sense, then the team will not perform as well. So I'm excited for this talk, and I would love to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. First of all, a very short introduction. I come from Copenhagen, Denmark, and have worked with Scrum and Agile for 12 years. I'm a fairly old guy, so I also work with basic, real project management and waterfall. And I have been working as a consultant for the last 15 years and worked for somewhat 40 plus organizations. And some years ago, I encountered this concept of the human element through one of my mentors and trainers, Klein Sastro. And what I'll take you through today is some ways of creating the psychological safety that we need, and that the Google Aristotle project definitely showed us that if you don't have the psychological safety, pretty much anything else doesn't matter when you talk about having productive teams. So should I share my screen now, Omar?
Yep. Go ahead and share your screen.
Yeah, I will. So what we will cover today is basically based on these two books, especially Will Schutz, The Human Element, and he started working on this back in the 1950s. So it's fairly old stuff. A lot of the things that we talk about today, we've known for years. And then back in 2004, the first edition of Radical Collaboration by James Tanner and Ron Lewitt was published, and it has a lot of very great tools. Also, a lot of them come from the human element. What I will be discussing today is what we also in the human element refer to as the inner side of business. Looking at the outer side, a lot of organizations are pretty good at defining their products and services and so forth, and they have procedures and policies and structures and you name it, pretty much in order. What we lack focus on in a lot of organizations, and what we as Scrum Masters really should excel at, and a lot of us do, is the inner side. So it's also what we see, or you could refer to the first line in the Agile Manifesto, people and interactions. Mm-hmm. So it's the communication, it's the ethics, it's the shared purpose, it's the shared vision, and it's all our values and our motivations that we really need to work with on a deeper level. So one of the concepts that I will take you through in the human element is the self-awareness part, which is a cue and totally central to creating the psychological safety that you need in your teams.
This is so awesome because I know as Scrum Masters, especially for newer Scrum Masters, they're just they're so focused on the delivery, the product, and sometimes they don't focus on the team part and creating that psychological safety amongst the team. To give you a small example, I came from a federal government background where it was a lot more command and control, and the psychological safety was not there. So since then, I've learned a lot. Try to always create that psychologically safe environment.
Yeah, definitely agree. It is the basic of any high performing or productive, effective team. Yeah. So what? Just a very short introduction to the human element. There are a lot of points to it. It's a huge methodology, but what we focus on when we talk about teams are the defensiveness and how to not trigger people's defenses. It's about choice and responsibility, and it's about truth and openness. I will not cover those topics much today because I will focus on the two things in the middle, namely the awareness, the preferences in your relations, and on the team development. So what we really aim for is having this. Sorry, I just moved this around. Is having the green zone communication. That's a key topic. I'll get back to it in a moment. And in the human element, I see the green zone communication really as identical to the psychological safety that has been so popularized, not the least because of Google's editorial project, but mainly, of course, because of Amy Edmondson's great work. And if you haven't read her book about the fearless organization, please do. It's a really good book. But what some of the key concepts that I will take you through today is the 5-role model. It's about inclusion, it's about control, and it's about openness. And this model you should see as when you have a team that starts out, they work on their inclusion first, and then they move to control, and then they move to openness. So this is just a very short teaser, and then I'll get back to it in about 5-10 minutes, because we need to start with defining the goal. So what we want to achieve is the psychological safety, the green zone communication. So we want to have environments where we can bring our full selves to work. Non-defensive, flexible. I'm not going to read all these words, but this is really what we strive for. We don't really see that in many organizations. I've had the experience in some teams, and it's just great to work in those environments. And those of you who have experienced that, I know you will agree with me. And when we come back, or if we experience what is the opposite of the green zone, the red zone, then we're really long for coming back into a green zone environment. Mm-hmm. And this red zone, we don't really see this kind of red zone with the rivalry and the blame and the don't forgive and us versus them. I don't see that so much anymore, I was about to say. But what I do see is a different shade of red, namely the pink zone. And I'm gonna dwell upon this a bit more because it's really how a lot of organizations work. And teams, especially when we start out with teams. But we do see a lot of under the surface discussions. We do see people being overly nice, pretending to agree. We do see people shy of conflict. So we don't get this candid conversation about real problems that we long for. And as Scrum Masters, we strive for when not only when we have our events, but also during everyday work. So yeah.
I was going to say that is good. So for as a Scrum Master, one of the tricks I employ, because as Scrum Masters, you want to shy towards conflict, but not what's the word I'm looking for? Constructive conflict. You want to have a constructive conversation. So in situations where I'm talking to the team, the phrase I use is, "That's an interesting thought. May I counter that?" Versus saying, "That's dumb. I don't like that." You say, "May I counter?" Because "Oh, that's a great idea, but may I counter?" Or you use the yes and you go from there.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and also the perception that everything that people say comes from a good intention. So if people say something that really sounds strange to me or in an aggressive way, I need to understand why. I need to ask, what made you say that? What made you think that? I'm curious about this. So these are questions we should ask our teams to be able to create a better environment and turn it greener over time. So those are sort of the communication zones that we work with. And again, we strive for the green zone, aka the psychological safety. And what happens in organizations when you have the red zone is that they simply have worse results. And back in the 70s, there was a big study, because a lot of this is also evidence-based. And the results there was that not only did you have a higher employee satisfaction rate, you also had a lower turnover, and you basically had higher profits and so forth. So the results are really visible. And there are huge differences in companies that are characterized by the red zone and companies characterized by the green zone communication. So there's a bottom line in this, big time, also for the companies to create this environment. And again,
I would say the one that really sticks out to me is open and honest. As a Scrum Master with your team, if you made a mistake, I own it. Like, hey, you know what? I made this mistake, but here's what I learned from it. And then here's how it can help the team, fail fast and learn and everything like that. So that one really caught my eye there.
Yeah, exactly. And also what we try to teach the companies that we work for is that you work in a complex domain, right? It's a complex domain. So a mistake in a complex domain is, as you say, it's an opportunity to learn. And it's not one person who's made the mistake. And when people come forward with the mistakes, you should say thank you, because this is an opportunity to change something in your system. Because so yeah, it's a very good point. And of course, openness is one of the basic Scrum values as well. So we should always strive for that.
Indeed.
Yeah. So coming back to Amy Edmonds and her great work, what she did in one of her articles was she came up with this graphic that shows how team members, and I'll just move this one, team members experience psychological safety. And there are a number of things that should be in place and that impacts their feeling of psychological safety. But one of the points is that the team members and teams can do a lot of things themselves. So their own interactions and how they perceive their individual differences in personality. And we have, in the human element, we have great tools for that. FIRO-B. And of course, you could also take some of the other things and put that into the FIRO-B part, and into the agile world. But right now, I'll just stick with what the teams can do themselves and what the Scrum Masters can do themselves, because I think that's also the main topic here.
Mm-hmm.
So what we work with, and what Will Schutz, the author and inventor of the human element, claims. And again, I'm going to dwell a bit about this one because it's one of the key. It's where some of the key knowledge is found. So we talk about awareness, self-awareness, and what Will states is that we all want to feel, either to some extent, we want to feel significant, competent, and liked. And this is in contrast to, or in fear of, being ignored, humiliated, or rejected. And I'm stating that to some extent, and I'll get back to it. But these feelings altogether affect the way we in our relations, the way we act on these three parameters: on inclusion, control, and openness. Mm-hmm. So these are key elements in the FIRO-B. And B stands for behavior, just for your information. So talking about inclusion. Inclusion is the contact we want to have with others and the contact we want others to have with us. So it's a two-way road. It's how much we like to include others and how much we like others to include us. And what Will says is that there is an almost even distribution in the population on a scale from 0 to 9. So if I have a preference for inclusion around 8, I should be aware that 90% of the rest of the population have different preferences from me. And that fact alone is sobering when it comes to collaboration, because we also have this tendency to believe that everybody is like ourselves. Everybody reacts like I do. Yeah, and they don't. So that's a really, really sobering knowledge to have when it comes to your relations and collaborating. And again, we want to some extent to feel significant because to some extent we are afraid of being ignored. Mm-hmm. And inclusion is you might say it's in the broth. So I want to be with a lot of people, and I want a lot of people to include me, to involve me in stuff.
And as Scrum Masters, it's important. The inclusion is very important because, outside of like the ceremonies and outside of, just working, it's great to create, like team building events, involve everyone. So for example, I had a team where we had set up every sprint, we would go get milkshakes as a team. We would walk out the building, we would all go get milkshakes, and we would hang out for, half an hour of lunchtime, come back. Everybody was included, nobody was ignored, and that helped promote the psychological safety amongst the team. Like everybody looked forward to it, everybody liked working together, and there was no fear, like nobody felt ignored. It was great. So as a Scrum Master, it's good. That's one little nugget you can, one of the things you can take away from our conversation here is how to help with creating psychological safety is throw in team events during your sprints.
Yeah. And with one slight warning, because you might have somebody in your team, and I'll get back to that. You might have someone who have a very low preferences of being included by others, and who might be intimidated by all these other guys who want to include them all the time. And why do we have to go drink milkshakes every day? I mean, it's really, I want to work. I don't want to do this. It's really, really tiring. It's kind of sucks my energy to be with too many people at the same time. So there are some aspects here and some dimensions that we need to take into account. And I'll get back to that, because you can actually measure the team atmosphere that you have concerning inclusion. And I'll get back to that a bit lower on the board, but it's a very nice observation, Omar. So coming to control, which is about influence, and here in Denmark, control has kind of a negative tone to it, but it's more about, if you think about it, of influence. How much do you want to influence others, and how much do you wish others to influence you? And it's about feeling competent. Yes. And some people have a very high preferences in feeling competent, and other people might have a lower preference of feeling competent. So they don't have this fear of humiliation, and it's all about the degree to which we want to affect and confront each other at work, and how we will relate. And again, an even distribution between in the population. So that's the second parameter. And the third one, about openness, is about basically where again you have influence as the broad inclusion as the broad of how many people you want to be with. Openness is in the depth. So how much do you want to share your deep secrets with other people? And it's the feeling is about being liked, and the fear is of being rejected. So how much do I want to open up towards other people, and how much do I wish other people to open up towards me? And I don't know if you've experienced that but I've had some colleagues over the years where sitting in the canteen eating lunch, they told me about, I mean, everything from their birth and how their mother was, so forth. Really, it's telling me deep secrets that I'm not really sure I want to know this, to be honest. So that's the openness. Inclusion is the broad part. How many people do we want to be with? How much do we want a lot of people to include me? And openness is how deep do you want to go in our relations?
That is so true. And as a Scrum Master, when I am in the Scrum Master role, I like to be, I'm probably a 10 on that scale, just being open to the team so that they know I'm approachable. There was a company I worked for a couple of years ago where senior leadership, they had the open door rule where their offices were in the same floor as all of us. The doors were always open, never closed. That way we're approachable, they're open, they would share, not intimate details, but they're like, hey, here's what's going on in my life, and just having a conversation and let you feel like, hey, I can really talk to this person and share my feelings and thoughts without feeling, rejection. So that is something good to do as a Scrum Master, is just be open as much as comfortable as you want to be.
Yeah, definitely. And I would also say that looking at, and I've been working as a Scrum Master and Agile coach for some years, and looking at my colleagues, I would say that most of them, if not all of them, have a high level of openness.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of goes with the job. The job attracts people who like to be open. That's one of the observations that I've had over the years after encountering this concept. And also to some degree about inclusion, especially that we want to include others. Not necessarily the other way around, but let's move on, because I'll show you, there's a test around this.
Oh.
So you can take a test. And unfortunately, this is in Danish because I am Danish, but I'll translate it for you. And this is my test. And if you look at the numbers down here, and you know that the highest number is 9, and these numbers are about openness, you can see that I'm also fairly open, which is why I share it with you guys. The first part is about the inclusion. So what this test says is that I do include others, because this not only shows what I wish, it shows what I do. So I do include others to 8, which is, I really include other people. And I wish to include other people to 8 as well. And I have a balance there. So if you look at your own personal test, you might have differences. For instance, in the control, it's a very low difference, but I control others to 2, and I want to control others to 1. It's not a huge difference, but if you have huge differences in your numbers, you might have some kind of imbalance that you should definitely investigate. It might not be a problem for you, but it's interesting to see that, wow, I control others to 6, but I really want to control them to 1. You might have an issue there. And these numbers, I should also say, they change over time. You can work and you can actually change them over time, and they also very related to your work life and your situation at home and whatever, and all your relations. But it gives you a basic picture of your fundamental preferences. And as you can see, I am very high on the inclusion part. I'm fairly low on the control part, and I'm also pretty high on the openness part. And especially, I'm very high on other people open towards me to 9. Fortunately, I also want them to open towards me to 9. So this gives you an idea of your own preferences. And when you do this test on a full team, what you get, I'll just skip this one and come back to it. What you get is a picture like this. And this is what we call role compatibility. So and this is a thought example of a team of 7 people. And the compatibility goes this way, that if I want to include some of my team members, I should include them to the same degree that they want to be included. Okay? So an example of the opposite, where you don't have a compatibility, is this one, where you have Frank. He wishes to include others to 1. And Arthur, he wants to be included to 9. So Arthur would probably experience that Frank never includes him. He never asks him to help with some work. He never asks him to go to lunch. He never really includes him. And you might have a conflict there. Same when it comes to control. If you have big differences in your team, there might be a conflict. There is at least a potential for conflict on this. And this brings me to the last one that I just skipped, because what is really interesting in this context is people's flexibility. Because one thing is that you have a number, you have a basic preference, but the interesting part is your flexibility. And we can actually we have exercises where we can actually measure that. So take myself, as I said, I'm very low on control. On my preference for controlling others is really low, but I can actually flex up to 6. So I'm fairly flexible. I can't really stay there for long. I spend a lot of energy. I'm not so comfortable in that role, being controlling at a level 6, but I can do it for a while, right? And that's also interesting in the context that some people that sometimes people, they stress out. I mean, people, they wear out. And one of the reasons for this is that they are either they're not flexible or they are flexing too much for too long. So having a knowledge yourself of your own basic preference also helps you as an employee to really understand, okay, this is why I should probably do something else. So this is my comfort zone. I can go up to 6, but if somebody demands of me to go up to 7 or 8 or 9, I'm going to be in deep trouble. I have to tell them this is not. I can't do this.
This reminds me of situational coaching. As a Scrum Master, like you have to know, again, you have to be flexible to know what your team needs for the situation at hand. Be able to, like, if you don't like being command and control, but the situation at hand dictate, like let's say it's an emergency or you have a major outage and you need people to go, and you needed a list of things that need to be taken care of, you would kind of change your style temporarily because you can't stay there the whole time. You don't bark orders, but in this one situation, you're going to give them out because like we need to, address the situation at hand.
Yeah, definitely. And it also gaining this knowledge within a team. And that's the second part, but gaining this knowledge, because one thing is the role compatibility, but gaining this knowledge, and people know that I am a guy who is not very fond of being controlling. They can help me, right? Mm-hmm. They can reach out and say, okay, Thomas, we know what you say, because you have a very not controlling way of communicating and you don't really prefer to be commanding. So when you say it this way, we take it seriously, because we know that this is really, really important when you put it this way. Mm-hmm. So having this knowledge in your team, not only by itself, having the conversations within the team, because in this case, Frank and Arthur could have a conversation and say, wow, okay, that explains a lot why you never invite me to lunch. Okay, that's okay. I'll stop inviting you for lunch and I'll just leave you at your desk because you don't want to go to lunch with the rest of us, because you don't really want to be included that much. It's very tiresome for you. So we'll just leave you alone for at least 3 days a week. And gaining that understanding can really help the team be psychologically safe. It can prevent a lot of conflicts, a lot of discussions, if you have that knowledge up front and if you have it early in your team life. Mm-hmm. And of course, it goes for all parameters. And what we do and what we can do in workshops is to have people to have the teams map their preferences and have conversations around their compatibility and who are they compatible with. And then there are a number of other tools where you can also map people's interactions and see, okay, you have a team of 7 guys. We know that Lisa and Michael, they need to work together a lot, but they are really incompatible in their control. So how do we handle that? Mm-hmm. But Mark and Andy, they don't work much together anyways, at least in the next couple of sprints. So that might not be an issue. So there are a lot of very strong tools that can lead you to have very fruitful conversations in your team. And as a Scrum Master, give you a huge knowledge as to how your team members, why they react the way they do, and how they should actually coach them and treat them, and on the basis of the knowledge of their preferences.
And as a Scrum Master, it gives you the ammunition you need for if you have a special project that comes down the pipe. These two are compatible. You can say, all right, we're gonna have you two pair on this because they're compatible and they can focus and knock it out. Versus having two team members on the opposite spectrum, where it would be great to get them to work together, but not on this particular project because you want to get it done as efficiently, as quickly as possible. Maybe a lower level project, let's get these two together more. You could do that, but it gives you, the data provides you that information for you to make those decisions as a Scrum Master. This is excellent.
Yeah, and it does. And it also provides the team members themselves the knowledge. And again, what it does, the knowledge itself and the conversation usually enhances their flexibility. So this is about raising the self-awareness, raising the awareness for yourself and in the team. So that's one part, the role compatibility, which is very nice. And then we have the second part. Another way of looking at it is the atmosphere compatibility. And what we do here is that we add all the numbers from the inclusion part of the survey, and we map them. And this is an example. So this is inclusion. We have an average in the team of 15. And then we can see the individuals, how much they differ from the average. Mm-hmm. And what we see in teams is that if you have a very, very low score on inclusion, then probably people prefer to work alone, or prefer more to work alone, which is also a very great knowledge to have as a team and as a Scrum Master. And if they have a very high number, they have preferences as a team to work more together. Control. If you have a team of very, very high, with a very high atmosphere of control, not only might you have some clashes, because if you have several team members who have very high preferences for controlling others, and you don't have many team members who prefer being controlled, you might have some conflicts coming your way, right? So this also, and again with the openness, you can see teams having very professional and distant conversations, or you can have teams that are very open and friendly. And there's no right or wrongs in this. Mm-hmm. Things are as they are. There's nothing right or wrong in these numbers. It's just to state that point. It's your basic preferences, and that's how it is. And if you and we all have our preferences and our basic preferences, and what we need to work on is the flexibility. So, but as a Scrum Master, having this overview of your team's preferences generally gives you a huge insight into how they could work together, why they work together this way, where do we have conflicts, how can we avoid these conflicts, how can we prevent them, and so forth. So a lot of data here that are very nice, and we like data.
Yeah, this is yes, we love our data. Definitely love data.
Yeah. So, and then it comes back to the model. And this is done by a guy called Gary Copeland. So when you have a team starting out, the questions you ask yourself as a teammate is, you look around on the other 6 guys in the team and say, okay, where do I belong? Do I have anybody I can hook up with? Do I see any invitations? Should I really be here? Am I in or out? How much do I want to involve others? And when we've had those discussions, we should have pretty fast, and we should be able as Scrum Masters to push the team through these phases from inclusion, control, and openness. And one of the questions I always get: what is this? And I usually refer to the y-axis as the level of energy that we use. Mm-hmm. So in the beginning of a team, we use a lot of energy on inclusion, and then at some point of time, we don't use that much energy in inclusion, because we know who wants to include whom and to what extent, how much they want to be included, and so forth. Also with the control, we spend a lot of energy on controlling each other and figuring out who prefers to be controlled and who really takes the lead on this one, and am I really competent in this context? When I sit at a sprint planning, is my input important? Do I have the courage to actually speak up by something that might sound controversial to somebody? And then finally, we end up having the trust that we need and the psychological safety we need, where we can share everything freely, and mm-hmm. in the Edmondson's work, have a candid conversation where we can speak freely without fear of being shamed. And having this picture in the back of your head as a Scrum Master can also help you push, because you can see, okay, what is the conversation about? Yep. Is this conversation about inclusion? Is this conversation about control, or are we actually in openness where we want to be? So listening into people's conversations is really interesting, and also, to be honest, sometimes a bit annoying, because you really are on a meta level at all times sometimes, and that can also be a bit tough. So you need to sort of find the right balance there, of course, as well as a Scrum Master, because you're also one of the team. So mm-hmm. So please be present still, and sort of find the right balance in your coaching. I mean, that goes in most of the context we are in as Scrum Master and Agile coaches.
It's the power of active listening to the team and always being available. One of the lessons I learned a long time ago when I first started out in my Agile journey was, I wasn't listening to the team. I came from a waterfall project management mentality where, okay, I gave you guys your orders, I'm gonna go in my office and close the door. Now I sit with the team or out in the open, so that way I can listen, I can hear if someone needs help, or if they're having a conflict, I'm available to help de-stress the situation or anything like that. Like, what help can you do? So as a Scrum Master, you're active listening of not only to the individual, but also being in the open space if you can. I know in the virtual world now, because COVID is a little bit hard, you can use office hours where everybody's on like working, but they're all online at the same time. And there's other ways that you can do that. Also, your retrospective is a great place to hear a lot of different things.
Yeah, it is, definitely is. And I had a wonderful experience some years ago working with another Scrum Master, and we were working on different teams, and we had a meeting with the department manager, who was strictly waterfall and very management like, and Rode, my colleague, he told this manager that sometimes he just sits and he has his headphones on, but no music, and he pretends to work, and then he just observes. And this guy, he was like, what am I paying you guys for, right? So, but that's what we do a lot of the time. Some of the time, at least, we observe and we listen in, and we notice if something is a bit off topic or something is going in the wrong direction, and then we help correcting the direction and help people to find their way, help the teams be self-managed.
I like that trick of headphones are on, but you're still listening.
Yeah. So that's basically the concept of FIRO, fundamental interpersonal relations orientation, behavior, and really a lot of great tools in this concept for teams for gaining understanding around the preferences we have in our relations, and hence really be able to create this green zone, aka psychological safety within your teams. So
excellent. Thank you so much. Can you go back to the two books? Because one of the questions I have are the resources for the Scrum Masters to use, and I want to make sure they're able to grab those two books. And there it is.
Yes.
Collaboration.
Yeah. And of course, there are also courses in this stuff. And if I should make a recommendation, I would probably start by reading The Radical Collaboration. Will Schutz and the Human Element describes the FIRO-B in much more detail. There are also other numbers that we have: a FIRO-F for feelings and a FIRO-S for self. But so I would start with The Radical Collaboration, which is also the book that Lisa Atkins refers to. And then if you want to dig deeper, then look into Will Schutz's work, which is, I think you can spend, if not a lifetime, but you can really spend a lot of time on studying his work.
Excellent. I'm going to say I'll definitely add these to my Amazon book list. I can read them, my digital download. Well, thank you, Thomas. This is awesome. I learned so much today. Thank you for the lessons.
That's great.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for the lessons you shared with our Scrum Master community. Where can people find you?
They can find me right here. As I said, I work in a small consultancy. There are 4 of us, network-based. We're very inspired by team organizations like a lot of other guys. And since we are only 4 of us, it's not that difficult. But we work mainly in Denmark. But I also worked in the Nordics. Actually, I also did some work in southern Germany for some time. But we are based in Copenhagen and in Aarhus, the second biggest city of Denmark. And please feel free to hook up with me on LinkedIn and send me an email or an email on LinkedIn if you want to know more. This is definitely worth digging into as a Scrum Master. The inner side is still not as excavated and implemented in businesses as we would like. Probably more in the teams, but the higher you go up into the organization, as I think one of the Edmondson's observations also is, that the higher you go up in the organization, the more convinced they are that they have psychological safety and they are part of the organization. So there's sort of a catch there.
Mhm.
We will work with that over the next coming years and with new generations of managers and leaders, hopefully.
Indeed. And Thomas, thank you so much for your generosity and time and your knowledge for sharing with the Scrum Master community. Thank you so much.